I am my biggest critic. There's nothing, and I promise you, you can try if you want, but there's nothing that you can say to me that will make me feel as bad as the things that I say to myself. That sounds terrible. Greetings, my friend. Welcome to What the Foss. I'm Coach Zoe, or the Coach Zoe you know, and I would love to say that I'm feeling great, that I'm feeling good, but I'm not, honestly. I have been beating myself up over trying to get certain tasks done and do certain things this past week or two, and I feel like that I had been going off track, that I had been procrastinating, and because of this, I was wasting my time doing a bunch of things that weren't actually helping move me forward into what I actually wanted to do. And this is one of my biggest weaknesses, is that I am my biggest critic. There's nothing, and I promise you, you can try if you want, but there's nothing that you can say to me that will make me feel as bad as the things that I say to myself. That sounds terrible, saying out loud, but honestly, it's true. It's something that we all go through, and I wanted to address it today because it's something important, and it's something that people don't really talk about when they talk about beating themselves up. And this is more on the mental side of it, not the physical side of it, or pushing your training too hard. It's more about the mental side and more of this mental health side of trying to work on new tasks and things that you want to achieve. So today I wanted to talk to you about really why do we beat ourselves up? And also I want to get into the hat that you wear. And I say HAT as in H.A.T, it's an acronym that I made up in order to make this a little more digestible, right? So the first bit that we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about the three sort of ways in which we tend to get into this bit of beating ourselves up, right? There's three things that I like to call the HAT, right? The HAT consists of H is habits, A is anger, and T is titles, right? So let's break each of these down real fast, and it'll kind of help to see where really this bit stems from, of what reason that we actually tend to beat ourselves up and what are the patterns that come into play. That was the thing I really wanted to look into, was what were the things that kind of led up to me beating myself up in this way. How was I setting myself up basically for failure in a task, or setting myself up to just beat myself down? So the first bit is the habit, right? The example I'm going to give is what I actually went through at some point this past week. And the H being habit is that habits can usually be broken down into three different areas, right? There's, by the way, I got this from a book, Atomic Habits. Highly suggest you give it a read or a listen. H being habits, there's three parts. Back on track here. There's cue, then there's response, and then there's the reward, right? Now, the easiest way to kind of think about this is, let's think about a productive one first, right, of these habits. So let's say that my cue is that, oh, it's a really nice day outside, maybe I should go outside and exercise. So my response would be, great, I'm gonna get some running shoes on, get into some active wear, and go outside to run. And the reward from that is that I get the health benefits, both physical on making my body healthier, but also the mental health benefits of running and endorphin release and being able to improve your mood after doing the exercise. Now that's a positive way of these habits, but how does that lead to us beating ourselves up? Well, let's take a habit in more of a bad habit sort of way, right? And it's not that the habit's necessarily bad, but if you're trying to do something productive, it can be bad. So I got in this weird habit of when I would get home from doing some work, I would park my car, and then before getting outside into the cold weather to get from my car, doing the 20 steps to the front door, my habit would be that I would pull out my phone and check some things on social media, right? I would tell myself, oh, I'm only going to check it for a couple minutes, nothing big, right? Turns out I would sit there in my car. The last time that I sat there for 45 minutes, just doing nothing productive on social media, but just mindlessly scrolling through random apps. And breaking that habit bit down into that cue, response, reward, the cue for me that I had set up for myself and hadn't realized was parking my car and not wanting to get out to do the other tasks that I had to do. So my response to that was to get out my phone and do something with social media in that case. And then the reward for that, it's kind of different. The reward is more of a short-term successful reward, because that's what social media and social media apps bring us, is it brings us this quick bit of information that we feel like we've done something, or that we've gotten some information, or that we got to relax for a second, and it brings on this temporary better feeling. And I think that's where most of these things start when it comes to this HAT principle, is it starts with some habit, usually not a great habit, which tends to be this almost like time suck, or it tends to be something that you're repeating over and over again, and then you think, how did I get into this situation? That's where A comes in. So we had habit, and then A is anger, right? It's usually this type of, like, for me at least, it's this type of like self-hate or anger that comes into play, right? I have this habit where I would sit in my car, be on my phone, and then all of a sudden at the end of it, I'd be like, yeah, Zoe, you just wasted like 45 minutes doing absolutely nothing. It's not that this is the end of the day and you accomplished a lot. You're here just sitting in your car when you have things to do, and then you're just sitting here just mindlessly scrolling and avoiding those things that you actually need to do, that you want to do in order to improve upon yourself. And this is where we get into this bit of this kind of rough, kind of self-hatred, anger towards ourselves. Now, it's a totally different story if you project this anger out towards other people, or you try to harm others or physically harm yourself. Definitely not the route to go. But if we're on this bit of, I did this habit that I don't really like that repeats over and over, I get angry at myself, and this is where I kind of beat myself up. And that's where that anger then turns into titles, where I go, I'm just not a productive person. I can't do this thing. I'm not successful enough to be able to do this. I'm just somebody who wastes their time and will waste their life away, right? That doesn't mean these things are true. These are just some of the titles that we give ourselves, right? We have that habit, we get angry, and then we have these titles where we say, I'm bad at organizing my time. In some cases, let's say I'm a bad runner, or I can't be a runner, or I can't work out, or I can't write a book, or I can't do this social media, or I can't go out and meet new people. These are these titles that we give ourselves, and the more that we tell ourselves these things, the worse that it usually gets. And our body mentally is just being beat up, and it seems to have no breaking point. But I want to look at each of these and give you an option of how to basically get out of this weird loop with this hat that you put on. So talking about the habit, right? The best way to do this, and the best way I found to do this, is you need to find some way to break the cycle, right? So for example, my bad habit was parking the car and immediately getting out my phone, and that's where I would scroll on social media, and it would lead to the anger and the titles, right? Instead, what I decided to do was to break that cycle. That, okay, I'm still going to park my car, but I am now physically aware and mentally aware that, okay, I'm turning into my driveway. I need to do something different. Otherwise, I'm going to be stuck in my car for an hour. And the way that I got out of that was I would just, before even taking the phone out of my pocket, I would say, okay, maybe you can take the phone out of your pocket, but you have to get out of your car and stand up. And even just doing that small little break in that cycle, that changed that habit of being or telling myself, oh, well, okay, I don't need to stand here outside of my car for an hour to scroll social media. I'm going to go inside and then get to the rest of what I need to do. So the key to breaking bad habits and replacing them with better ones is finding ways to break your current cycles. Now, that can be a ton of different ways. That can be everything from if you want to run more, but you find yourself getting to the couch, just say, okay, I can't sit on the couch to watch TV. It's a lot more uncomfortable if you're just like sitting on your carpet versus trying to sit on that couch. It's just these tiny things that at first you think, well, that's not going to do anything. But if you put these little roadblocks in for yourself for the bad habit and change them to be, figure out what to do more productively with your time, that can actually improve that habit and break that cycle, replacing that bad habit with something that might be a little bit more beneficial to you and those around you. On the anger side of this hat, the way that I want you to think about this is that I'm not going to tell you, okay, well, just stop being angry, or you shouldn't be angry. You have no reason to be angry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to feel scared, to feel unsure. The biggest thing with this is that you can't just try to push those feelings out of the way and say, oh no, I don't feel that, or like, I don't get sad, I don't cry, or I don't get angry, I'm always a peaceful person. Emotions are okay. The key of this is that you stay in control of your emotions. These emotions might build up, but you can also say, okay, I feel angry at this, and that's okay. It's basically forgiving yourself for feeling the way that you feel. It's not that that feeling's wrong. It's not that it's wrong to feel angry. It's just you can say, okay, I'm feeling this. I can feel this for this bit of time, and I will, instead of pushing it away, I will get through it. And that's kind of a big bit that's sort of helped me with that, is staying aware of what emotion that you're feeling, telling yourself that it's okay, and then just working through that moment of anger or frustration. Now, the T principle of titles, right? This is the one that sort of holds us back the most. This is one where we are what we repeatedly do, right? That our actions kind of lead to the way that our life sort of leads out. But it's also this way with the stuff that we tell ourselves. I used to tell myself a lot that I was not a runner, that I couldn't run, that I would not be anyone who was like these workout idols that I would see kind of being productive with their life. That's cool for them, but I can't do that. Our mind has a weird way of believing what we tell ourselves. And the big thing with this is that change happens all the time. Things are always changing. So because of that, you can also change the titles you give yourself. Even if you don't fully believe it or fully invest in it at first, you don't have to say, I'm just not a runner. Instead, you can say that I need to work on my running. You don't have to say that I'm bad or I just can't manage my time. Instead, you just need to say, I need to work on managing my time. It's all about these things that we tell ourselves, and it's all about the way that we tell ourselves, right? When we get into the habits, it's all about changing the habit. When we get to anger, it's more of looking at the way that we see anger. Instead of being this shun thing that we shouldn't do, it's something that we now can change our mindset on to see that it's okay and that we can work through it instead of trying to completely avoid it. The T with titles is changing up the way that we tell ourselves things, is that everyone is bad at stuff at first. Everyone can fall off track with things, and that's okay. You're not automatically a bad person for, like sitting in your car scrolling on social media. That's a totally okay thing to do. But if you're wanting to manage your time in a different way and perhaps get the productive stuff done first and then do that mindless scrolling on social media, you can do that. And it's important to just not tell yourself, oh, well, I'm just bad at this, or one I had, right, was I can't remember names. I'm just bad at remembering names. That's what I would tell myself. And then at one point I was like, well, I keep telling myself that. I'm probably going to keep being bad at that. So I found different ways to try to remember people's names. And now I don't tell myself that I'm bad at remembering names. I've gotten a lot better at remembering people's names who I meet. It's just some of these things that you express in a daily way that are really going to make the changes over the long run. So I hope you remember this the next time that you feel like you're beating yourself up. And I hope that if you have any questions about this, you reach out to me. You can either reach out at FOSS Movement on most of my social medias, or you're welcome to check out my website at fossmovement.com. Otherwise, my friends, take chances, make mistakes, and don't beat yourself up so much. It's all about the titles you give yourself, the change in your habits, and knowing that it's okay to feel the way you feel. We'll talk soon.